Good evening. My name is Kathie Schwartz. I'm from Franklin Lakes. Can you hear me okay?
Not really. So sorry.
I'll try to speak louder. I've written to the board a few times already, so you've probably heard from me before. A couple points that I wanted to address tonight. I'm happy to see that you're reversing some of your actions of the January 5th board meeting. I'm happy to see that you are now going to honor the commitment to pay stipends to the staff for their leadership on the strategic plan, which was tabled on January 5th. I'm happy to see that you're now willing to approve a treasurer of monies. It looks like the same resolution that you voted down on January 5th is back on the agenda. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Ms. Sullivan, you said you don't usually revisit things that have already been voted upon, but I'm glad you are revisiting this one. I'm glad to see the reversal of the pause on the ESIP that the board did on January 5th. And finally, I'm very glad to see that you're completely reversing the bad decision that you made to insert the board president into the day-to-day operations of the district with regards to legal services policy 0174. At the January 5th meeting, Ms. Sullivan told the public that she thought the purpose of the policy change was to be fiscally conservative. 4 days later, Ms. Sullivan told a reporter that she thought the policy would be reversed upon the hiring of new counsel. Why would that be? Did 5 board members vote to change a board policy specifically to control the use of the prior board attorney? What kind of games are being played here? What kind of fiscal savings did you achieve in 3 weeks of trying to enforce your new policy? I suspect that changing a policy on a walk-in motion on a first reading in violation of your own board policies 0131 and 1210 and in alleged violation of the school board code of ethics has potentially caused you more legal trouble and expense than you have saved in the last 3 weeks. In the meantime, I would like to ask, since the district currently has no legal counsel approved for new business, what is the plan if an emergency should arise that requires legal counsel? I would also like to address the termination of the longtime board attorney. 5 of you sat at the table and implied that it was because of high legal bills and fiscal conservative views. Legal bills are not driven by the attorney. They are driven by the district's use of the attorney, which is driven by situations and events in the school district that require counsel. There is no way to predict what kind of legal situations will come up in a school year. Student cases, employment issues, negotiations, contract issues, grievances. The use of counsel is not the fault of the council. Perhaps the district should look within and see where we are spending legal money and why before blindly terminating one of the most respected school board attorneys in the state of New Jersey against the recommendation of the superintendent. If you actually look at our legal spending over the last 7 years, you would see that our spending varies greatly year to year depending on the events of the year, negotiations, etc. I saw that the Wyckoff K-8 BOE, including Mr. Bodansky and Ms. Mariani's running mates, was smart enough to unanimously renew Fogarty and Hara.
Ms. Schwartz, your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Yes.
Kathie Schwartz, Franklin Lakes. I got a little bit cut off before, so I'll just finish where I didn't finish. Ms. Sullivan, you indicated your great support for the superintendent and supporting all of his hiring recommendations. I was extremely happy to hear you say that. I would like you to reconsider his hiring recommendation for Fogarty and Hara. And I think we all know actions speak louder than words. I've heard that very loudly at these meetings over time. So I think it would be interesting for you to consider Dr. Dianuso's recommendation for that. I also want to comment on the policy PO2 that's on the agenda. Similar to Mrs. Holst's previous comments, I was also on a Board of Education. Excuse me.
Excuse me? Don't speak when the speaker is speaking, whoever did that.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. With regards to policy 0164.1, I do not believe it is a best practice to have board members attend board meetings remotely from home. Again, particularly for executive session, people can be in their kitchen, they can be in their office with the door closed, but their whole family is walking by. Anybody can overhear a confidential conversation. I think it's a very bad practice. So I do suggest that you consider not having a second reading on that policy until it is substantially revised. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Kathie Schwartz, Franklin Lakes. I had a couple follow-up questions. Policy 0174, I just noticed on the agenda that you put it in as a first and final reading. My understanding is it's a violation of your own board policy 0131 to put through policies on a first and second reading at the same time unless there's an emergency. which there is not. So I would suggest maybe you look at policy 0131 before you start bringing forward policies on a first reading. Second, with regards to negotiations meeting at the end, I believe you said the end of February. Personally, one of the biggest helps that a good attorney is in a district is in the negotiations process. I think it's pretty scary for the board to go into negotiations without board counsel. So I really hope that before you start having those meetings, especially with a very new negotiations committee who has never done this before, may not be familiar with salary guides, NJSBA is just not enough. You're going to need a good board counsel to help you out. With regards to operations, I was very interested to see all of those motions that went through tonight. I've sat here and listened to people complaining about a $750 dishwasher purchase and there being issues with it. I've sat and listened to people complain about legal fees being excessive. Our legal fees last year were a total of $131,000 paid to Fogarty and Hara. That represents about 800 hours of work, and that was for the whole year. And you just approved about $350,000 in architect fees without going to bid at all and without a single person raising a question. I don't understand how a $750 dishwasher gets more questions than $350,000 in architect fees. I am in support of the projects that are being done. I just think it's very hypocritical to complain about some relatively small expenses and not investigate some pretty big expenses. And lastly, I would like to know, why did the board vote no to the minutes from the January 5th meeting? I was trying to count, I believe 5 board members voted down the minutes, and what does that mean? Does that mean that the public cannot access the minutes? And why did you vote them down, and what do you think will be changed to make you vote for them? Thank you.
Thank you.